Get me out of here. Maybe you feel that way. Believe it or not, there is a psalm for every emotion. If you feel a certain way, there is an answer to your feelings. There is guidance for your feelings in the book of Psalms. Let me take you to Psalm chapter 20. It begins in verse 1. May the Lord answer you in a day of trouble. And I've been talking to God a lot lately, and I've been asking him things like, God, I could really use a vacation from my home right now. Maybe you could too. Verse 2 continues. It says, may he send you help from the sanctuary and sustain you from Zion. God, does that mean that angels can help my kids with their stay-at-home school lessons? Because that math is very hard. 4th grade math is very hard. Verse 4 says, may he give you what your heart desires and fulfill your whole purpose. Oh, that sounds so great, God. But my heart desires a lot of things right now, and I'm not so sure that they are aligned with your purposes. Verse 5. Let us shout for joy at your victory. God will determine the timing and the method of deliverance. That's what this psalm is really about. It's God who determines the timing. Yes, he will bring you victory, but it's on his terms and on his timeline. The good news is that God does desire for you to know his victory. This victory comes to his anointed, it says in verse 6. Now, Psalm 20 is what is often called a royal psalm. It's about kings and battles and victories and deliverance. The problem that we find in the book of Psalms, the problem that we find really in the whole Old Testament, is that no earthly king could consistently deliver. Yes, some of them could deliver some of the time, but none of them could deliver all of the time. And the same goes today. No politician, no business person, no pastor, no educator can always deliver. You can't even deliver yourself. And as disappointment built with each new king, the royal psalms became the building blocks for hope in someone greater. So they would, the people of the Old Testament would have these kings, and all of them would ultimately disappoint. And so they would look back to these royal psalms and they would say, maybe there's a king. Maybe there's a king who really can give us true hope. A disappointed earthly kingship becomes this hope and an eternal king. And the king here in this text in Psalm chapter 20 is an earthly king, but the Psalms are ultimately pointing to Christ himself. The themes of victory in Psalm 20 help shape the theology of victory found in the New Testament. The superiority of Christ over earthly kings becomes a reality for the people. So out of their frustrations and failed expectations in an earthly king comes an ultimate hope in a heavenly king. There is a greater person. There is a greater king. There is a better victory. Verses 7 and 8 in Psalm 20 says, that basically our methods of deliverance ultimately fail us. We put our hope in the wrong thing, chariots and horses. And in order for us to rise and stand firm, it says, our confidence must be in the Creator God. When we rely on God alone, then, as the psalm concludes in verse 9, then, when we're relying on him alone, then he answers us on the day that we call.